Becker, Kukri video, take one.
Hi, I'm Ethan Becker, and I'm the president of Becker Knife and Tool. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Kukris. I'm been a big-time fan of the Kukri since I was in my teens. I'm fond of saying that one of the first road trips I ever made was to drive from Cincinnati, Ohio, to Adrian Van Dyke's place in, where the heck did he live? About 75 miles away from Cincinnati, to pick up a Kukri, and I believe this is one of the ones I picked up from him when I was 17 years old. It was one of the very first Kukris I ever saw, and I fell in love with them. This is not a particularly good Kukri, but it demonstrates a lot of the characteristics of a Kukri. This one has horn handles. I used it. I modified it by painting it black because it was rusting like a maniac. The steel is not good. The handle is, for a Kukri of that era, pretty good. It's got a pretty good handle for a European sized hand, and it taught me a lot about blade design, big whacking blade designs. This is a very poor example, actually. But Kukris come in all kinds of things. This one is an Atlanta Cutlery imported one, and is an officer's model Kukri, i.e. More for show than for reality, although it would be a pretty decent blade if that's all you had. You'd probably be certainly better off than without a blade at all. This one's got a little bit of embellishment on it, and has quite a lot of thrust. People want to know why they're bent in the middle, and the reason is because it becomes an extension. If you hold it comfortably, it becomes an extension of your arm. If you use a snap cut, in other words, if you use it the way you would an axe, like this, you're basically curling it down and building the momentum. And you think, as a martial artist would, that you're hitting through something as you do that. It's amazing how much action you can get, how much material you can move. Of course, it is mostly known as a fighting weapon. There's a lot of BS about the fact that if a Gurkha takes a Kukri out of its sheath, it must draw blood, and he will cut himself and all that stuff. But that's like saying that a South American is likely to do that with a machete, because they're used as a utility tool as well as a fighting weapon. As a weapon, they're pretty amazing. When the Gurkhas showed up, and this is the Nepalese Gurkhas are Nepalese, and when the Nepalese showed up, usually enemy patrolling stopped. It didn't fall off, it stopped, because the Gurkhas really like to use this thing, and it leaves a mess. Even in the Falklands, they preferred using this to their rifles. And I've been, this is a quite thin piece, but it has very good action. It's balanced well, but of course its handle is a little bit small for me. I'll come back to that. George McDonald Fraser. who wrote the Flashman series, which is a lot of, which are historical novels, which are pretty hilarious, wrote a book called All Quiet Out There, which was a description mostly of his experiences in Burma, as in both an enlisted man and an officer fighting the Japanese. And he said the first thing that they all did when it looked like they were going to go into combat at night is to loosen their kukris in the sheaths. And that made an impression on me. It's a great book, by the way. Very interesting. There are also on this table not only kukris, but kukri-like objects. This one is one of Bill Siegel's, and it is an almost, what I think of as an almost kukri. And if you look at this, and from what I know and from what this kukri, which we'll get to in a minute, has taught me, is that the bend, actually, I used to think that the part of the kukri blade that did the work was right in here on the recurve. And I was wrong. What does the work, and the reason, one of the reasons for the bend, is to not only get it as an extension of your arm, but the bend presents this section right in here. And the longer this kind of lozenge shape is here, the bigger the sweet spot. So the sweet spot on these blades, this one has a big sweet spot. This one has a big sweet spot. This one has a tiny sweet spot. So, and Bill's, this is a Bill Siegel, great, one of the better makers of large hacking and whacking items. And your sweet spot here would be in this area right here. Nice action on the Siegel. One of the blades on here is an A.G. Russell, made for him in Italy. And this one is an extremely light kukri, and it punches way, way above its weight class. I don't think he has it in the catalog anymore. I would have bought a couple of them. Handle design is extremely comfortable. You're not going to get any kind of hot spots at all here. You're going to be, and it doesn't feel like it ought to chop a lot, but it's a beast. And AG is one of the best designers of knives that I have ever known or known of. And this, it's lovely. It begs for it. I mean, I'm just barely twitching it, and it's making bites. Just barely, hardly the weight moving, what, 6 inches? Nice blade. And when I first started designing knives, I took the things about the kukri that I really loved. It's the bend, and I also took the handle, or started with the handle on this blade. This is a case-made knife. I think Camillus and several other people made a folding version of this knife, and it was an Army Air Force survival seat pack knife. And this one has chopped roots. It has been abused horribly over 35 years. And it's not terribly thick, it's not terribly heavy, and it is just an absolutely marvelous blade. And you marry that with a kukri knife, and you end up with a Mashax. And knowing what I know now, this would start in here and go out. But the handle I designed to be extremely secure but smooth, so that you could work and do all kinds of stuff with it and chop and hack and whack for hours without benefit of the gloves you should be wearing if you do any of that stuff. And you can stab this into Will Fennell and Anthony Lombardo, who at the time were selling my knives for blackjack, dipped one of my handles into automatic transmission fluid and repeatedly stabbed a cedar tree with it without having over travel. A lot of people say, well, where's your guard? Well, here's the guard right here. It's fine. But you'll never get hot spots from this handle. And it's plenty secure. But moving right along, Blackjack made a version of the Hank Reinhardt Kukri, the first one that Hank did. Hank was probably almost certainly knew more about Kukri design than any other American ever. He used them. He appreciated ever so much their ability to get work done, and he was a designer of many varieties of weapons, from Scottish broadswords and Viking swords to the Reinhardt Kukri. And Mike Stewart called me one day and said, would you like to let Hank Reinhardt put one of Hank Reinhardt's blades, his Kukri blade, on your handle, and we're going to make what he called a Kukri machete, and that's what this basically is. And it was made in 440A, I think, as well as probably 1095 with Mike. You're never quite sure exactly what the steel is. But this blade is one of the most lively Kukris that I've ever picked up, maybe the liveliest. And whether it's in the machete thickness, the 1/8 inch machete thickness, or whether it's in the 5/32, which the new Reinhardt Becker Kukri is going to be made out of. This was the first prototype I got, and it is just absolutely an incredible hacker. It has a huge sweet spot. The balance is virtually perfect, and of course there's what I think of truly is a more or less incomparable job that K-Bar does with 1095 Chrovan. And Chrovan just means there's a little extra chromium and vanadium in the steel, and it improves the grain structure a little bit, and if it's heat treated right, it's pretty incredible. And here's an interesting thing. We managed to get the blade to go back. We couldn't get it to go back all the way because it just didn't work out on the grinder. But we got it back far enough so that this blade, which is, I think, 14 inches, can be used to do quite fine work. And it's just a matter of finding the balance point in your hand. And if you get up here, you got to be very careful. I'm basically opposed to choils, but you can get up and do that. And if you have to, you can clutch up on it and do your skinning if you have to. You can do an awful lot of things with a big blade if you spend enough time working it and trying it out in every possible iteration. And this is more or less what the blade is going to look like on the production version. It's 5/32. It's and it does not have Hank's signature on it yet, but this was an early prototype. It's going to have the smooth finish, and it's this thing. If you say I was talking about, gotta have the one knife. Well, you could do a lot worse. I want one of my BK16s as a backup for the littler stuff, or a 14 or an 11. But with this alone, you can do an awful lot of work. Are you going to make a lot of little itty bitty tiny traps and stuff? Well, it won't be as easy as if you have a smaller blade, but again, you can do it. I took one of my 14-inch machetes one time and built a bow drill kit using nothing but it. It was a little awkward at times, and the people, because I was over at my tracking teacher's establishment, we were all stuck in the small plates, and my neighbors who were working around me were a little nervous, but I managed to get it done, and none of them got hurt, and neither did I. So it was a successful thing. But if you at all like Kukri knives, you are going to love this blade. You're going to absolutely love this blade.
When will that knife be available?
I am hoping that this blade will be available before Christmas this year.
Are we all?
2015. I'm not sure. They don't tell me when things are going to be released from K-Bar, because I rat out things, and then people, if it doesn't quite make it out on time, and people start calling up, and they don't complain to Ethan, they complain to K-Bar and blame K-Bar, and it's Ethan's fault that he got everybody twitched up. Ethan has been taken to the woodshed more than once over this, and I don't blame him. I don't have to field the phone calls. So, but soon come with this, and this is just absolutely. You get this motion down. You think through the target. You can move material. I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, hey guys, Chance Sanders once again. Thank you for checking out the channel, and we're going to keep bringing you good information as long as we can find it. Appreciate it, Ethan. Thank you for talking about
Always
all
a
of
good
your
time.
Kukris and the evolution, and a little insight on Ethan's design process, which is always something that I look at, being a very small knife maker, designer. I don't call myself a knife maker, but it's nice to see
You've
how
made some knives.
I've made a couple. But to learn, you got to learn from people that came before you, and hopefully learn from their mistakes, so you're not repeating all of them yourself. But I'm excited about this knife. I really am. And as soon as one's available, guys, I'm going to buy one, and I'll be taking it out to the bush and doing all the things that we talked about. And it's going to be great. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.